Okay, so I think you've all gotten used to me doing my stalls. And while I started doing this one, I started thinking of something that I really think that riding instructors need to listen to. Horses can be the best horse in the world, but there may come a time where a student needs to know how to jump off. And I recently was in the company of somebody who rides, and I watched the individual struggle to get on the horse from a mounting block, not even from the ground. And it wasn't so much the putting their foot in the stirrup part that seemed difficult, it was the swinging their leg over confidently, knowing, where you're trying to put your foot. As soon as you set yourself down into the saddle, the reliability of a horse to just stand there and wait patiently for somebody to kind of gather themselves up before they can go somewhere. And, we all know those horses that walk off, so you always have that concern with somebody who's struggling to get on a horse and to be comfortable on a horse, to be comfortable in the mounting process. It's usually pretty obvious if somebody struggles to mount a horse. In the terms that I'm referring to is, putting their body across the back of a horse, confidently being able to swing their leg over and set themselves down on a horse comfortably, with confidence and with skill. You can usually tell by somebody that struggles in that department is going to struggle in the dismounting process. I think every farm should have some kind of simulation situation, whether it be like a barrel that's, shaped like a horse, but something that can help simulate having to get off in an emergency. Because it struck me as, oh my gosh, if that person had mounted a horse that was not 100% safe and swung their leg over on that horse and started to walk off, got in the saddle after however long it takes, and the horse started to walk off, and then the horse decided that, you feel funny because you're not balanced, so the horse panics and not only starts to walk off but maybe starts to run off, and you're still fumbling with your reins and your stirrups and not really realizing that that horse is becoming a rocket ship, just that's, warming up their engines, and you're the one that's helping them warm up their engines through kind of your lack of confidence and a lot of times, like, there's adrenaline or shakiness that's attached to somebody who's not confident about mounting. That shakiness can be perceived to a horse as fear, and if a horse is relying on you to be a good leader, the last thing you can do or should do is provide that horse with a sense of unconfidence or lack of confidence in yourself. So let's just say the horse panics and takes off running, and chances are right off the bat you're on the ground right then, because like I said, you're probably still trying to get your foot in the stirrup, and you're probably still trying to gather your reins or figure out the proper position to have your hands in for the reins and whatnot, okay? Teaching how to hold a horse while mounting, specifically putting the horse in a emergency stop position before you even start to climb on, I don't think is something that's being taught. How to vault off of a horse, I don't think is being taught. And personally, I think those are the things that need to be taught right before. Those are like safety things. Learning where the brakes are on a car is a safety thing. Knowing how to put the car in park is a safety thing. Well, once your leg is swung over and you finally got yourself, sitting down on the horse, how do you get off? I can promise you that there are certain things that happen to somebody who struggles to even get on, is they know they got to get off, but their brain shuts down on them as to the mechanics of doing just that. Getting off in a hurry, getting off. I watch people where I watch their brain connect to their leg. Okay, I gotta swing this leg over. Oh, there's the saddle, so I gotta get a little bit higher over the back of the saddle. And their brain is processing every step of that to where it is an active thought process. Getting off of a horse in an emergency needs to be automatic. It cannot be something that you're thinking through. It cannot be something that your brain hasn't digested how to do this. If it takes you 70 seconds to get off of a horse, I don't know why I chose 70, but if it takes you 70 seconds to get off of a horse, that's 70 seconds that your horse is going to help you get off. Or you're going to be attached to a horse going for a ride you'll never, ever, ever want to take again. Being able to swing your leg over in a vaulting kind of way and get yourself on the ground before you get hurt or go for a ride that you don't want to go for, I think that is so much more valuable to teach these people than how to walk, trot, canter. Okay? I think one of the first things that everybody needs to be taught, whether it's with a simulation where you use a barrel, or it's with, that dead broke horse that is only tacked up for this purpose, only tacked up for people to get on and off of. So that way they can really truly feel what it's like to, to be climbing onto an actual horse, if that's necessary, if that visual experience needs to happen. Personally, I think using a barrel is a great idea, but I also think using, that dead broke horse who wants a job but doesn't necessarily have the physical ability to have a walk, trot, canter job, but can have a stand still, maybe walk a few steps till somebody jumps off of me kind of job. Like, there's jobs for those horses. I really, really, really think that riding facilities need to understand the importance of teaching somebody how to get back off in an emergency, how to allow themselves to disconnect from the mechanics of getting off of a horse and not think about taking their feet out of the stirrups, and not think about swinging their leg over the back of the horse, and not think about clearance and how to hold on and what to do with my body. Those things need to not be what you're thinking about. What you're thinking about is, when I'm on the ground, what am I going to do with this horse? How am I going to control the horse once I'm on the ground? But to think about how to get on the ground, it's way too late often to be thinking about how to do it in an emergency. So I think one of the big things that I really, really work very hard on with my students is an emergency stop. I teach the students that. I teach my horses that. It keeps everybody safe. I don't make people jump on and off the horse, although I'm not saying that I wouldn't, but you run the risk of somebody rolling their ankle or something, actually doing it, because if you do it with a live horse, there could be, a step away from you when you're not expecting it, even a good horse. So a simulation, again, a barrel with a saddle on it, elevated, build something, whatever. Build an imaginary horse, like build a model horse, and, make it so that somebody has to figure out how to get off, and make it like a timed thing to where when you say emergency stop, they know what to do with their hands, they know what to do with the reins, they know what to do with their legs, and they do it automatically. because in an emergency, you don't have time to think about it. It scares me that there's riders out there in riding programs that fearfully climb on a horse and that fearfully process the steps to get off of a horse. I would not want to see that person in an emergency situation, because that person is going to, first of all, is going to have the worst ride of their lives. Whether they get bucked off, or they get reared off, or they get zigged and zagged off, or they go for a dead run somewhere, maybe into the barn, and get decapitated on their way through the barn. Those aren't rides anybody should ever have to take. Knowing how to stop a horse, knowing how to at least slow it down, and knowing how to get off in an emergency, I think is crazy that that's not being taught. That somebody should never look like climbing on the horse is a complicated mental process. Somebody shouldn't look like every aspect of, okay, take my feet out, I'm going to put the reins here, and I think don't leave your students like that. Don't allow students to not know how to get off in an emergency. Get off. I'm afraid for how many people must be out there truly not knowing how to get off of a horse 1,000,000% in an emergency that can do it automatically. That's not something just trainers need to know how to do. That's not something just instructors need to know how to do. That's something everybody that puts their butt in a saddle needs to know how to do.